Thank you for joining us on Bees on the Law, legal talk from the boss perspective. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide legal advice and is not meant to create an attorney-client relationship. Also remember, laws change and differ from state to state, so this is not a substitute for seeking legal advice in your jurisdiction on the current law applicable to you.
Hello, welcome back to 3 Bees on the Law. I am Susan Dawson, your Illinois bee.
And I'm Camille Canale, your California bee.
I can't believe I just said Illinois, Wisconsin. Anyway. Today we are going to talk about Proposition 65. We're going to do a high-level review of it because I think a lot of California businesses are familiar with it, but what I find is surprising is the number of businesses outside of California that don't realize it impacts them. So Camille and I thought that we would just do a bit of a high-level understanding, both for those businesses in California that maybe want to brush up on it, and also businesses outside of the state that want to know if it impacts them. If you're selling goods within the state of California, spoiler alert, it impacts you. So Camille, why don't you walk us through Proposition 65?
Right. So Prop 65 is the Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act. It was passed in the 80s. I suspect I wasn't in California, believe it or not, in the 80s. I'm not quite old enough to have been working in California at that time, but I understand pollution was very bad. And this act was designed to help clean up some of that pollution and get bad chemicals out of the environment and require businesses to put warning on products if they contained certain chemicals.
All right. So what type of chemicals are on that list, and where can business owners find kind of more information on what chemicals they should be aware of?
So I personally think the best list is at california.gov, the government website. There are over 900 chemicals on the list. So we're not going to go through them all. But if you manufacture a product or you import and sell a product in the state of California, you should look at that list to make sure that the product doesn't contain any of those chemicals. One issue I know is, for example, if you are importing your product from other countries, you don't always necessarily know what types of chemicals they use to finish the product. And so you should double check and make sure you know your manufacturers really well.
Right. And what can you do if you're not sure or you don't know if if you want to be, it's on the seller, I would assume, to be responsible, not the manufacturer that you're shipping it from. So if you want to be absolutely sure that you're in the clear or whether or not something's in the product, what can you do?
Find a lab and have your product tested for the products, or for the chemicals. I mean, not the product, but have your product tested for the chemicals. That way you can be reassured. It never hurts, especially if you're an importer, to have your product tested from time to time.
And make sure that whoever is testing is familiar with Proposition 65 as well, right? So
right, and knows there are some minimum safe harbor, minimal amounts that you can scrape through, but you really want to make sure that whoever you hire to do the testing knows what they're doing, is a reputable lab, and can provide you with documentation that your product meets the levels.
Right. All right. So what other business responsibilities or other responsibilities of business owners are there?
So one of the things that can happen, and I think this is the most important part of it, is if you are concerned that your product contains one of these chemicals, you got to put a Prop 65 warning on your product. And there's lots of examples. There are firms that can help you if you need a more robust warning. If your product is dangerous and you already have a warning on there, you probably have to have a Prop 65 warning on your product as well. But a lot of minor products, imported, especially plastic things, often can contain levels that would require a Prop 65 label. So you just want to be careful is all, and make sure you have your product tested.
Well, and I think it's important to note, that it's not just about what people are ingesting. It's any product, right?
So-
And because if they might hold it or anything, right? And you could have a product that 90% of it doesn't have anything, but you have this little piece of plastic on it, right? That like, you know, a tag or a whatever that's attached to it, and suddenly it falls within Prop 65. Am I right?
And a lot of, I have a couple, one or two, not that many, but I have one or two often cases a year where the business was selling on Amazon or mailing their product into the state of California, and they didn't even realize that their product contained this chemical. There are consumer watchdog groups here that will randomly test a bunch of products, and if your product tests as requiring a Prop 65 label and you don't have it, you could be subject to a lawsuit. And quite frankly, if you're selling, a $5 product and you can get hit with a fine, I think the fine is $2,500 a day now.
Wow.
The product. So it's a big deal. It may not seem like a ton of money. And you're fighting a lawsuit over this.
Well, it adds up. It's a day, right? It adds up. So it's not like the consumer watchdog, the day you started selling the product, catches it. They might not catch it for a year or two. And now we're 365 times the daily penalty, right?
So typically it does. My general experience is that it doesn't add up like that. They want the fine and they want a warning added to the product a lot of times as well.
Well, they'll make the demand at the higher end and then hope, can't guarantee, but then there's some sort of settlement amount to move on from. But the idea is for business owners to understand that the maximum liability can be very high. And that you need to be aware of this. Because like you said, you could be selling a $5 product and then get hit with a $2,500 fine. And you didn't, it eats up all your profit margin because you didn't do this.
And so it also depends how much product you sell. So a high volume, it may be a higher, they're going to want more money, obviously. Whereas if it's a one product, it doesn't. So that does make a difference as well.
Got it.
And in addition to the consumer watchdog groups that work with law firms, obviously, to prosecute these kinds of cases, the Attorney General can also file a case to enforce this act and make you label your products and make you pay a fine.
Wow. So bottom line, if you're selling product and there's a chance that it could go into California because you're selling through some sort of retailer where maybe you're not controlling the end, where the end customer comes from, like an Amazon, find out what's in your product, get it tested, make sure it's certified, right? The testing results, make sure it's from a lab that you can go back against if they screwed up, right? And make sure that you're not going to get hit with a violation. did I sum it up?
That is a pretty good 40,000 foot level, but if you sell products, just take a look at California GOV. They have a lot of great information about Prop 65 that is much more detailed and can help you hopefully navigate through the process of determining whether or not you need to label your product.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks for that great high-level review of Proposition 65, Camille. And to everyone out there listening, join us next time on Bees on the Law.
Thank you for joining us on today's podcast of Bees on the Law. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. We also welcome any comments. If you'd like to get in touch with us or suggest a future topic, you can email us at beesonthelaw@gmail.com. And because we're lawyers, we need to remind you that this podcast is not meant to provide you with legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day.